Hi, I'm Amiel, and this video is about the term acceptance, or to accept. And the reason I wanted to speak about this is that I've had my healing practice for quite a few years now, and every once in a while I hear somebody misuse the term acceptance because there's a misunderstanding of what it means to accept. There's a distortion in the understanding. Now, if you've been on the healing journey for a while, or even if you're fairly new to it, or if you've read some self-help books and some spiritual books, you'll come to fairly quickly understand that acceptance is a very important part of the spiritual and healing journey. So what we're talking about when we refer to acceptance is being willing to allow the natural and organic flow of energy through the process of change, the change in our lives. It also means that we are willing to look at what's within us or before us in our lives in truth, seeing it for what it is, in its totality. Now that means that we are willing to acknowledge all of it and how it's impacted us. We are willing to see it for what it is. We are willing to acknowledge perhaps the cost that it's created in our lives, a sense of loss. We're willing to see how it's emotionally impacted us, how it's affected how we think about life and how we think about ourselves, our own perception of ourselves. And we also allow ourselves to feel how it's impacted us. In addition, when we allow all that, we allow ourselves to take full responsibility. There's an opportunity there to recognize that it's our own thoughts, our own emotions, our own behaviors and actions, and our choices that have created that experience in our lives, and that it's our own thoughts, emotions, behaviors, actions, and choices that can respond to what's before us. But of course, to do that fully, we have to be willing to allow it. We have to be willing to see all of it, to feel it in its totality. Now there's something that's rather important as well. When we're truly in acceptance, we are observing that information, that experience, through our observer consciousness, through our observer self, our higher self. And so we are witnessing that with non-attachment, non-resistance, and non-judgment. We are not judging it in any way, and we're also not trying to rush past it because it's too uncomfortable for us to look at and acknowledge in our lives. We're truly willing to be present with what's before us and what we're experiencing within us. Now, it is true that on the spiritual journey, we can have many moments of resistance. Even when we're participating consciously in our process of ascension, we can perhaps resist being willing to look at a limiting construct or beliefs in our lives that have been limiting us in some way, but we're not quite willing to own that. Or perhaps we're not willing to look at an aspect of ourselves that isn't flattering, that we would perhaps call negative. We're just not quite willing to admit that we have that trait. Perhaps we're looking at illness or a significant choice that we have to make in our lives, and we're just not ready to take a look at the truth of it because we have a sense that it does have many implications. So resistance shows up quite commonly in all those ways. Now, what I hear people refer to acceptance is from a very different place than what we've been speaking about. The languaging is revealing, and what it may sound like is this. Yes, I accept that this is happening in my life. I see it for what it is, but I don't see what choice I have about it. Or I may hear, yes, I accept that this happened in my childhood, but what's done is done. There's nothing I can do about it now. So when I hear that, what I'm really listening to there is the individual's ego. The ego self is essentially saying, yes, I see it, I may even feel it, I may even acknowledge the cost to it. But that's where it all ends for me. This is where my involvement stops the flow of energy. Of course, the ego in that moment doesn't see that it has choice, that its empowerment can come from how it responds through thoughts, emotions, actions, and choices. Of course, the ego never will. So we want to really acknowledge here that if that's happening, if that's the languaging that somebody is expressing, then it's the ego operating from a place of powerlessness and defeat. There's nothing I can do about this, says the ego. So that's very different than what we were saying earlier. That true acceptance always involves our higher self, our God self, our spirit. When we are willing to look at the truth of what is before us or within us, we are inviting spirit to join us in that experience, to join us in that observation and witnessing. And it's only our God self that can hold all that in neutrality. Again, non-attachment, non-judgment, non-resistance, fearlessness, and timelessness. In that moment, we are allowing spirit to create grace, to shift that energy, whether that means to release energy, to be supported, to neutralize a difficult situation. All of that comes through the grace of spirit. And of course, when we do all that, that truly is the opportunity for self-responsibility. When we are willing to take responsibility for what's before us, that is truly when we begin to engage acceptance. And that is sometimes utterly essential for us to be able to move forward. This is when the energy starts to flow again. This is when we allow the natural and organic process of change. So I hope this information has been helpful to you as a discernment. Please take some time to also look at the rest of my website. There's lots of helpful information on my blog as well as on my YouTube channel. Be peace.